The US voted to end normal trade relations with Russia last week by revoking its most favored trade nation status. It means they'll no longer receive preferential tariff treatment, and it'll make Russia even more isolated from the global trading system. So what type of sanctions has your government put on Russia? The decisions made by your government impact you and other people around the world. Are they making the right decisions? And if you could vote on these decisions, how would you vote? If you're new to my content, One Direct Democracy is a movement for upgrading the global democratic system by taking power away from the politicians and putting it in the hands of the people with direct democracy. It'll also eliminate left and right-wing politics. I've created the technology and a plan for how to make it work. If you want more information, check the links in the description. For each episode, I'll pick an important issue, outline the problem, suggest solutions, and then you can decide how you would vote. In this case, we'll be talking about trade sanctions against Russia. Okay, if you're just looking for another talking head that isn't actually interested in doing anything, you're in the wrong place. If you want to be part of the solution, let's get into it. So what does most favored nation mean? Now, the first point to make here is that the US uses the term permanent normal trading relations, but I'm going to refer to it as most favored nation because that's the term used by the rest of the world and the World Trade Organization. Most favored nation status is part of the foundation of the World Trade Organization. It was even mentioned in the first article of the first treaty when the multilateral trading system was established in 1947. This is a simple summary of what it says. When a country awards this designation to a trading partner, it promises to apply only its lowest trade barriers, which is a reference to tariffs and quotas, to that partner. If the awarding country then decides to lower barriers to one trading partner, it must lower them to all trading partners deemed to be a most favored nation. So the objective here is to support the principle of non-discrimination. If you give one country a good deal, then it's expected that all of the most favored nations will get the same deal. Now, how can the most favored nation status be removed? According to this article from The Conversation, WTO rules provide a number of ways that members can impose special trading barriers on other members, but the one that's relevant here is the so-called security exception. Article 21 of the 1994 treaty that gave rise to the WTO allows a member state to waive most favored nation status when necessary for the protection of its essential security interests, especially in the time of war or other emergency in international relations. In fact, Donald Trump used this exemption as part of his justification for his trade war with China. Now, you might be thinking, can Russia be expelled from the World Trade Organization altogether? And the answer is yes. It would require 2/3 of the member states to open debate on the issue, and then 3/4 would need to vote for the expulsion of Russia from the WTO for it to succeed. But to be clear, that has not happened. So what impact will all of this have on Russia? Well, in the short term, the only impact is symbolism, but it can lead to more severe sanctions in the future. As far as the US is concerned, it doesn't have much trade with Russia. Russia's single biggest trading partner is the EU, and the G7 countries represent half of all Russian exports. Now, as I've mentioned in other videos, sanctions are a double-edged sword. This article from The Conversation does a good job of summarizing it. As the damage on Russia goes up, the country imposing the sanctions feels more pain as well. This is especially true given Europe's oil and gas dependence on Russia, which means its energy costs could surge if the EU imposes more sanctions on Russia's energy sector. More on that. Ukraine and Russia's status as major producers of food grains has the World Food Programme sounding the alarm that the war and the resulting sanctions could increase hunger in many developing countries. So this is the bottom line. The removal of the most favored nation status allows countries to place more severe sanctions on another WTO member, in this case Russia, without breaking any WTO rules. Okay, so can Russia get everything that it needs from other countries? Russia thinks that the answer is yes, but it looks like they might have got this wrong. Intelligence reports have alleged that Russian President Vladimir Putin informed his counterpart in China in advance of his broad plans toward Ukraine. It seems likely that Putin understood that sanctions were a possible consequence of the invasion, although he probably did not anticipate their severity. The reality is that China's not a source for everything that Russia needs. And anything that Russia buys from China, that China in turn had to buy from another country, will cost more and take longer to arrive. So the best case scenario is that China can cushion the blow, but it's not going to solve all of Russia's problems. Now, we should also ask, what are the longer-term consequences of a closer relationship between Russia and China? The article from The Conversation makes a good point. Trade and financial sanctions are the primary tools available, short of war, to punish Russia for invading Ukraine. But if sanctions are so severe that they prompt Moscow and Beijing to forge an even closer relationship, that risks further splintering an already fragile world trading system. So the summary is that this is the right decision, but it's not without its consequences. So that's the summary. Tell me what you think your country should do. Is your country allowing trade with Russia? And if you could vote on it, would you vote for your country to ban all trade with Russia, just ban the trade of some products, or not do anything at all? Let me know what you think in the comments. The reality is that we've reached a point in time where representative democracy no longer serves the will of the people, and the challenges that made direct democracy impractical have been solved. That's why I created One Direct Democracy. It's a movement for upgrading the global democratic system by taking the power away from politicians and putting it in the hands of the people with direct democracy. We don't have to convince any politicians or any powerful people to do anything to make this happen. We have the power to do it on our own. We just have to decide to do it. If you're new to all of this and you have no idea what I'm talking about, check out the other videos on my channel and the links in the description. Direct democracy is the purest form of democracy. Representative democracy is an outdated, blunt instrument.